Hello, and welcome to Dialogue. Today I have Elizabeth Rodeno with us. Elizabeth rose through the ranks in Hollywood, working on numerous films, television commercials, starting as a production assistant and working in almost every department, including sewing costumes, script supervision, set dressing, production coordinating, AD, second unit director. It's quite an accomplishment. She is one of the producers on the Perfect Firestorm, the Thomas Fire. She's also project manager at Caps Media here in Ventura. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
Living in Ojai, I experienced the fires and was evacuated. And it was probably one of the most terrifying things that I've gone through. And we're seeing it now as we sit here with fires in Thousand Oaks and Palisades and Malibu. I think it's really important, the film that you did, to make people recognize the climate change and, that we need to start taking some measurable steps to mitigate the kind of damage that is happening right now in our state. What was it that inspired you to make this documentary?
I think that after the fires, because of our crew and because of the availability of our talent and our skills, we thought that it would be a good opportunity to share the story and invite the community to come in and tell their experiences.
Right.
And then produce it sort of to give it back as a gift to the community. Their voice.
I parted the shades in the window and saw a wall of flame. It was just on the other side of the entry driveway to the apartment complex. The brush and the homes behind it were completely engulfed.
And I went outside, and the hillside was coming up the hillside above our ranch. Saucer-size ash was blowing on fire coming down the hill. The wind would kick up and little fireballs were kind of being thrown. And what we hear later, like the fire was jumping in 1 mile to 2 miles ahead of itself at a time. And we had time to pretty much get the dogs out and go.
I promised her I would leave as soon as I saw flames. And at that point, the wind was blowing so strong and it was coming in, I thought, I'm not gonna make it out.
One of the things that I thought was so beautiful in the film was how so many people in the community, even people who lost everything, were there to help their neighbors. There were stories of people who had to let their animals go, their horses go, because they only had maybe 1 or 2 trailers to save 1 or 2 horses. And people took other people's animals in. People came and they brought them food and clothing. And it's really a testament to how human kindness and how people can help and love thy neighbor. And it really resonated. Was that the point that you wanted to get across of the story, sort of the underlying message?
I think that's what came about. I mean, we brought people in and asked them to share their story. So we sat there, all we said was, tell your story. And we sat and listened, and it was really interesting to hear their experiences. Some people who had never seen their neighbors, a couple people in Upper Ojai that knew maybe one neighbor and afterwards joined together, and they know everybody now in the community.
Right.
And one person said she was surprised at who stepped up. She said it wasn't who she expected to step up and help.
Right.
And I think, it was really a wonderful experience, I think, for everybody to really realize that they dealt with it in a real calm manner, kind of it's like selfless. They were helping people. They'd get out of their car, stopped. My boss lives up in the Adelanto neighborhood, and he said he was stuck for 45 minutes on the street that was the only exit. And he said nobody freaked out, nobody honked their horn. They got out to help other people. I mean, it was really, people stepped up. I don't think, you never really see that until, you're faced with such a catastrophe.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that is one of the unique beauties of Ojai, is that there's one road in. And I mean, I heard so many of my neighbors' stories, and I didn't know if my house had survived. So when they lifted the evacuation and you were allowed to come back in, I drove up and the town was desolate and it was so thick. The smoke was so thick and the ash was falling like snowflakes. I mean, it was just unlike anything I've ever experienced. And when I rounded the corner and I saw my house there, it was just like I just started bawling. I literally hugged my house. I mean, it was insane. And I realized I was one of the luckiest people because so many people lost their homes. So I commend you for, bringing this important documentary, especially now, like I said, with all these fires in Northern California. So what lessons do you think that we can learn about emergency preparedness and, what steps can you take?
Right. Because I lived up here when we had the floods, so that was 2005. I think it was 2005, and all the roads were closed. And I said, I'm going to prepare for this because you never know what's going to happen. And I think we all need to keep a to-go bag ready with all the supplies.
And cash.
We need. And cash, yes.
I didn't have any cash, and the power was out.
Right.
So I couldn't pay for gas,
Right.
and I couldn't go to the grocery store, and you just felt like what Armageddon would feel like.
But I think the most important thing is that you have a full tank of gas.
Yes.
And that was, fortunately, I drove by the lines of people in line waiting for the gas.
Right.
And I went, okay, and I left, and and all our friends say to each other, do you have a full tank of gas? And we all remind each other. So I think that was the most important thing.
Yeah, full tank of gas. Also, like, if you know that your area is in an evacuation area, to actually take your car outside of your garage. Right. Because I know people who couldn't get out because their car was in the garage and they had lost power. So that was
or learn how to
open it manually. Right.
So also there's a service that you can activate on your phone. It's called VC Alert, and you can have them send you texts and emails and call you to alert you to what's going on.
Right.
And
I signed up for that.
Yes. And the many firefighters, because we also interviewed firefighters who were out there fighting the fire.
Right.
And they really kind of explained to us how the fire moved and why it moved the way it was. And it was really fascinating.
What I learned was more about evacuations and what's the important aspects of evacuating people. And it stuck with me. And so that night when we rolled into the Thomas fire, that information stuck with me, and I kept thinking in my head, no matter what, if there are people in front, we have to pull the trigger and give them fair warning to get out of the way. We don't have much time before people's lives are going to be in danger. So that sense of urgency is important. You don't want to panic, you don't want to overreact, but at the same time, you want to be deliberate with your actions.
Drive 0 to Giant 30. We're looking at the glow. It looks like it's actually probably passing us up in the hills above.
The skills that they had, it was amazing. Ojai is a bunch of windy roads that they lead to dead ends, and it's not just straight grids. And so they had to really figure out how to get to these remote areas, and the way that they cut the fire line, the way that they backburned, I mean, they were amazing. And when I got home and I hugged my house, there were Colorado fire. They were from all over the county, Oregon, Washington State. I mean, it was just an incredible force, and there was a fire engine on every single block.
There were over 8,000 firefighters who fought this blaze.
Yeah.
It was really, I think it's good for people to see and to listen to the stories of the firefighters, because a lot of people had real issues with where's my fire truck? Why aren't they protecting my house? And so I think if you listen to their stories, you really get an idea of what they can do and what they can't do, and the nature of.
And it was so widespread. So there was just we don't have enough resources. So the fact that they sent the resources from everywhere was just amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
And now they're really fighting. I mean, I look at it and I go, it's like they've had so much experience now, and they really know how to get together and support each other.
Right. Yeah.
And because it is what they say is the new normal.
So tell me about your role at CAPS Media and what you're doing there.
Right. So CAPS Media is a public access center where we have members join, and we teach them how to use our equipment so that they can produce their own videos, and share their own stories. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is we do go out and produce our own shows, like the Perfect Firestorm.
Right.
And so I act as a production manager, arranging the shoots and getting the right people there, recruiting talent. And we all kind of pool our resources for who we know and who's the best person to tell their story. I mean, we have a full production studio, and really make use of it.
Yeah,
it's
a wonderful resource in the community of Ventura, and we're so thankful that actually CAPS is executive producing this with us and has brought us a cameraman and camera equipment and everything, and so we really are appreciative of this. Well,
it's important to share all different aspects of filmmaking, because it's certainly a group effort. And
it is. This show, Dialogue, couldn't happen without the many volunteers that are here today, and the Ojai Film Festival and everything. So it's really great to be a part of it. Well, I wanted to thank you so much for speaking with me today. And you should be so proud of your film, and we look forward to seeing more about what CAPS Media and what you do.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
That's it for this episode of Dialogue. We will see you